אוקיי, מי שנכנס, יש לנו פה, יכול להפעיל בסרגל התחתון את הצ'אט, ואם יש לכם שאלות, אליי או לאלן, או סתם אתם רוצים להגיד היי, אנחנו כאן, אתם מוזמנים גם כן, כדי שנדע שאתם כאן. אני אתחיל בזה אוקיי, מצטרפים עוד, פשוט עוד אנשים. אני אתחיל בכמה דברים שבעצם רציתי לספר לכם קודם כל, ואני דקה אחת, אני אעשה שיתוף מסך, ברשותכם, רגע אחת. אוקיי, בואו נוריד את זה שנייה אחת. אוקיי, אז קודם כל, מי שלא מכיר את אלן, בעצם יש לו ערוץ יוטיוב שנקרא computergaga, ערוץ מאוד מאוד, אתם רואים כמה מנויים יש לו, ערוץ שאני עוקב אחריו הרבה שנים, הוא עושה, באמת, הבן אדם הזה מאוד מאוד מוכשר, הוא עושה דברים ומסביר אותם בצורה מאוד מאוד טובה, ואפשר ללמוד ממנו המון. אז אתם מוזמנים קודם כל לגשת לערוץ יוטיוב שלו, ולהתחבר אליו כמובן. יש לו גם כמובן אתר, שעכשיו בימים אלה האתר הזה מקבל איזושהי בנייה חדשה, הוא בימים אלה בונה אתר חדש ומודרני יותר ויפה יותר, ואתם מוזמנים גם לאתר שלו, יש לו גם כן הרבה, יש לו קורסים, ויש לו פה יש לו פה בלוג, ובעצם המון ידע יש פה באתר הזה, שאתם מוזמנים להגיע אליו. עכשיו, מי שלא מכיר ומי שלא יודע, גם כן, יש לי פה דף בפייסבוק שנקרא יוניק, שלי, באתר הזה, זאת אומרת, בדף העסקי הזה שלי, אני בעצם מפרסם את כל הוובינרים, גם שהיו וגם הבאים. יש לי פה בעצם, כבר העליתי גם היום, ממש לפני חצי שעה, עוד וובינרים, ועוד כל מיני דברים. אני מזמין אתכם לדף העסקי שלי, וגם לקבוצה שנקראת, הקבוצה של יוניק, שאני מזמין אתכם גם לקבוצה הזאת. בסוף הוובינר הזה אתם בעצם תקבלו מייל, ואני רוצה להזמין אתכם לסדנה שאני הולך לערוך, סדנה שהיא מאוד מאוד קצרה וממוקדת בנושא אחד ספציפי, שזה נקרא Power Query, ויש מחיר מיוחד לכל מי שכרגע משתתף בוובינר הזה ונרשם לוובינר, שזה בעצם סדנה של 3 שעות, כל התאריכים, הכל תקבלו במייל שלכם, והמחיר הזה הוא ל-24 שעות, מה שאתם רואים פה, 350 שקל, ומחיר, אחר כך המחיר יעלה ל-550, סדנה בין 5 בערב ל-8, וזה הכל. אני רוצה להעביר את המיקרופון ואת רשות הדיבור לאלן, והוא משדר אלינו, אתם רואים, אם אתם זוכרים, בעצם, אוקיי, רגע, stop share, בוא נעשה ככה. Okay. Alan, hi. Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to be here.
Nice to have you. And the micro is yours. You can start the webinar.
Okay. Super.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Shlomi. It's a pleasure to be here. Any opportunity to talk about Excel is always welcome.
Yeah.
have people listen to me. So yeah, my name is Alan, as Shlomi said, from ComputerGaga, the blog and the YouTube channel. And what I want to present today is lookup formulas. But I want to try and do something different, because that's kind of what I do to an extent. So when people talk about lookup formulas, they normally think about Vlookup or index and match combinations, or maybe even XLOOKUP being the new, new soldier on the scene kind of thing. But I want to try and do something a little bit different and look at the choose function, index, but they always put it's not a function. And so VLOOKUP functions that are nowhere near as popular as VLOOKUP and spoken about, but can also do amazing jobs. And warning, there might be a few others coming in as well. So they're the main three, but there might be some other little lookup functions creeping in. But no VLOOKUPs or XLOOKUPs. That's the plan. They're amazing, but I want to do something different. So if I share my screen, cool, got that stuff over there. Everyone can see my screen okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So this is just the front page. I'll ignore that. That's been spoken about. But I've got a few examples which hopefully I can shoot through. Starting off with choose, and then we're going to see a little bit more with indirect and index. Feel free to pop information in the chat box if you've got questions, or I wonder if any of you have got some experience with these functions. Have you heard of them before? Have you used them? Be interesting to know, because I say they don't get the coverage that your VLOOKUP does, which is far and away the most well-known one. On his first example of choose, if I just type a random for the moment, for anybody who might be new to this one, the job of the choose function is to select the right one, is to return a value or a range of values based on an index number. And sometimes it's difficult to see why these functions are useful when you first start out. And there's lots of reasons you will find these useful. But a classic example, I think, for choose is that I want to create some kind of dynamic, interactive chart or text-based maybe table. So what I've got here, I've done a little bit of work setting it up so we don't spend too much time on that and we can focus on the formulas. So I've just used the developer tab to insert these little form controls. So I can choose whether it's Berlin, Paris or New York. And as I do that, you might notice the index number in cell A1 changing. If I choose Berlin, it's 1, Paris is 2, because it's what number control that is. And just quickly, I can do that by right-clicking the control, format the control, and they have what they call a cell link. And I've told them all to look at A1 and it just changes that. Down here, that's what these tables are. This is Berlin, this is Paris, this is New York. Just normal ranges. They're not tables, they're not name ranges, just normal ranges. And I just want to populate the right information in here. And I'm going to use choose. So if I start up the choose function, the first thing it prompts me for is the index number. And for that, that is where I'm going to reference cell A1, because that's where it's going to get the index from, where it's going to be the first one, the second or the third one. And I'm going to fix that, make it absolute, because in a moment, I'm going to copy this formula so it's the whole range of the table. It needs to be 5 rows, it needs to be 2 columns. If I put in a comma, it will now prompt me for all of the values. First one, second one, third one, and so on. I can't remember how many it can handle, but it can handle lots. We've only got 3. So value 1 is going to be product A at the moment, or F or K, depending on what's selected. At the moment, it's Paris, so it's F. And then I'll put in my comma. So I'll choose that one, comma, choose that one. So which one of those 3 is it, based on the index number here, which is currently 2, i.e. product F. Now I'm going to leave those references relative, so when I copy it down, it will go to the row for, let's call it product B, product C, and when I copy it to the right, it will do sales. So if I close that and press enter, I can copy this down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then come across. And now if I choose anything like Berlin, it will change to the Berlin sales, New York changes to New York sales, and we've got this kind of interactive range, so that imagine this is a really nice looking dashboard or report. Somebody can interact and things are happening. All this stuff would be hidden. Now I'm keeping it on the same sheet so that we can see what's going on at the moment, but I'm not going to have it this messy in real life. We can then even select that range and create, you know, visuals. We can create charts. We can do some conditional formatting ranges. You know, we can write more formulas, all the stuff that we want to do in Excel. But the key thing is that we have this interactive element, and choose is a way of doing that, which is often overlooked, and people write kind of nested ifs or do something like that. Like if it's 1, do this. If it's 2, do this. And we've only got 3, but you can imagine if you had 10, it'd be much easier to use a choose function, and they also run very fast. Okay, so that is a quick demo of one called choose, and an example of where it can be used, but hopefully you're getting ideas of how else it could be used. That's not going to be in there.
Yeah.
So in the next example, now this time I want to start to look at a function called indirect. Now the job of indirect, for anyone who may be new to this one, is it converts text into a reference. So what I've got here is I've got this table, and this is a table. If I click on it, I see this table design tab at the top, and if I click on that, I can see on the far left that this table is called quarterly sales. A table called quarterly sales. It's got the 4 quarters, and I've got a different product in a different location. Over here, I have a drop-down list for a product and a drop-down for a location. In cell K3, people want to know the value. They want to know the value for, at the moment, chocolate, Codon, and in K2, quarter 1. So we've got 4 different quarters. Did they choose 1, 2, 3, or 4? I don't know. And when they do that, I need to know what products, what location. So we've got quite an intense look. We've got 2 columns to test, which generally do that with Vlookup or even Xlookup or index match. May use a Concatenate, doing all this crazy stuff, create helper columns. But we've also got to find a column. So it's a kind of 2-way lookup, and it's pretty intense. But we're going to use the SUMIFs function. I'm going to get SUMIFs involved, and indirect, obviously. That's what we're here for. So when I mentioned at the start that there's going to be some others helping out as well, for the purposes of this meetup, I'm going to pretend that SUMIFs is a lookup formula, which technically it's not, but it can work as one. We've only got 1 value here. There's nothing really to add. There's only 1 value for each of these, but it can read text. So what Vlookup can do in that aspect, but it can be used as a lookup when you're getting a number, and especially good for multiple criteria. We do have one called SUMIF as well, but nobody cares about that anymore. SUMIFs, because that can do it all. What's the point in the other one? And I'm going to run with SUMIFs. Now, the first thing it prompts me for is the range to sum. So really, that's the range I'm returning from. Is a number, but it's called sum range. The primary purpose of the function is to sum. Now, for anyone who might not be too sure on this, it's probably better that I show it before I start here. If I just back out for one moment, if I was going to do a normal sum function and just out quarter 1. Now this is a table, so if I click on the header quarter 1, it will select table column, not the sheet column. I don't want to see on the table column just underneath. And I wanted to see this, so I don't know how familiar you all are with it, but this is a structured reference for a table. It has the name of the table, quarterly sales, followed by the name of the column, quarter 1, and the name of the column is always in. And I'm showing that because we are about to create it. In here I have a drop-down list. Is it quarter 1, 2, 3, or 4? and we need it to be able to fetch the right one. Now, I've been a little bit cheeky here because cell K2 says Q1 sales, but it doesn't say Q1 sales. It actually only says Q1, but I've used some custom formatting just to put the word sales after it. So that word sales is not actually there. It just says Q1. So what we're going to do, let me just try and zoom in so this is all clear. Sum ifs function. Well, I could Q2, for example, but I need to catch it from that cell. Is it 1? Is it Q2? So I'm not going to do that. I'll click on next. It'll save me typing. I'm going to put in the function called indirect. And this will ask you for the text and referencing. So I want it to look at K2, where there's a word, Q1, and convert it to a reference to something by that name, which is the name of the column header. I can't just get it to look at a cell used as a sheet name or a named range. I need to convert it to a reference. I'm going to open up some double quotes and close them here. So the first part of the reference, quarterly sales, square bracket, an ampersand to concatenate. And instead of Q2, I'm going to refer to the cell above because I don't know if they chose Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. I can then join onto that closing square bracket. So I wanted to show you what the table reference looked like to start with so that it wouldn't maybe look too crazy here, that I'm creating a reference with that piece of text followed by whatever's in that cell. So that bit's dynamic, followed by that piece of text. I can now close off indirect. So that's creating that dynamic reference to a column, which sum ifs is using for a sum range. Pretty cool. From here on in, for those of you who have done sum ifs, it's pretty standard play. I've got two ranges, product, location. Let's bash those in. Criteria range 1 is the product. If I put in a comma, what's the criteria? Chocolate, aka I3, comma. Next criteria range, Ivory Comfort location, comma, and come over for London. So I've got two criteria, products and location. Formula's looking a bit scarier than it should do. And if I close off some ifs and press enter, it gets me 567. Which if I can find it in here, this is Q1. So Q1 for chocolate and London, 567. But if I change it to Q3, here's Q3, chocolate and London, 481. And indeed, if I change chocolate to coffee, now I've got coffee London, Q3, 432. So I've got three conditions in a lookup here, two columns and, well, in a row, testing two different columns, and I've got to find the right kind of column reference in a row. That's a pretty intense lookup. Doesn't matter what formula you're doing, whether you're doing X lookup, whether you're doing index match, that would require a bit of work. But I think in this example, that's probably the quickest way of getting it with the way it's set up. Indirect definitely helping us get that column reference. And the fact that it's in the table, which are brilliant. Everybody should be using tables. Hope this is all sounding okay. This file that I'm using, I will provide. So it'll be provided as a link to the YouTube video, I believe. So don't worry if you don't catch it all now. You'll be able to get stuck in and play around with it yourself. And now I've got an example here of doing the same thing, but now it's not in a table. Now, I wouldn't necessarily advise this because I think everything should be put in a table, something like that, put it in a table. Your life will be easier, it'll be dynamic, all the good stuff you get with tables, Power Query, all this stuff. But if we choose to take it that way, we could get some other lookup formulas involved. So I could do the sum ifs function again, and it prompts me for the sum range. But now I'm not going to create a table with the square brackets because it's not in a table. It's a normal range. So for Q3, I need E2 to E21. So E2 to E21. That's what I want to create. So I'm going to bring in the indirect function, but now I need to create that range. Now I'm going to use a function called address. So this is another lookup function. It's in the lookup and reference category on the formulas tab. And it's an excuse for me to bring in these other lookup functions that many people have never used or maybe didn't even know they exist. And it basically converts text into a cell reference. So with this address, it asks me what's the row number, what's the column number, and then some other questions which I don't care about because I'm all on one sheet and I don't need absolute references and all this stuff. The row number is simply 2. I know it's the second row to start with in this example. Comma, what's the column number? I'm going to use a function called write, a text function, to take the last character from that cell above. Remember, that says Q3. Sales is not there. It's Q1, Q2. So that last character will be the number. So that's the write function with address. Then I'm going to add 2 onto that. Just trying to think there for a moment. Because Q3 is the 5th column, because I've got 2 before them. So Q1 is actually the 3rd, Q2 is actually the 4th. It's always 2 more than itself. Okay, so that should be that address function. Now I want to concatenate on a colon because I'm trying to build up a reference here. So that's the address for what I've got there. Now I want to build in the colon and then another address function to find the other end of it, which will be row 21. That's the last row. Column number, same as a minute ago. I'm going to be extra lazy and just copy that. And I probably should have copied the +2 as well. If I'm getting this right, this is beginning to hurt my head. I don't know about you guys. That should be index. And then if this is going to plan, the rest is the same as before. Oh dear, let me pick up the speed with that. Come on, get that column. Oh, it's not a column, is it? I forgot. A2 to A21, it's a normal range. I could select all the column. That is that, comma, next range, B2 to B21, comma, that one, close some ifs. Who knew I'd mess it up? And I have a problem somewhere. They are in the wrong place, I think. There we go. Whew. 484. Who knows where that is? That looks like it's there. Pi and London for Q3. So, as I say, a lot more messy. I would always be using tables. So this is not something that I do or would want to do. But now in the real world, it doesn't always work like that. And if you're getting spreadsheets from other people and they have to work with them as well, sometimes, even if you know it's best, you can't do it because some other customer or some manager is controlling you. So it's nice to see an example of how to do it with a normal range if you're kind of forced down that route. And it's also a nice excuse to see address, another lookup function. You know, it's not something you're going to be using too regularly, but at times you need it. We were able to create addresses, concatenate them into a big bit of text and have indirectly used that as a reference. Okay. How are we doing for time? Not bad. So I've got another indirect function example, and then we're going to move into our final function. I mean, it's not a final one, but the final main one, which is index. Now, for this first example, I'm using a Microsoft 365 version of Excel. So I've got dynamic arrays available in this. Now, yeah, so I'm going to do an example of dynamic arrays, but then I'm going to do an example without, because I know some of you might be on Microsoft 365, some of you might be on 365, but on the semi-annual channel, so you won't have the dynamic arrays quite yet. They'll be coming out in 2 months, or you might have 2019 or 2016 or something. And we've got to bear that in mind. You know, you don't always need the latest stuff. But for this first example, I have this drop down. You know, I've got Perth in there at the moment, got the list here, and here's Perth, Sydney, Auckland. Got slightly different ranges. Auckland's only got 5 products, Melbourne's got 7. So they're not the same. Whereas when you went back to the choose function, they were all exactly the same height, just to keep things simple. They didn't have to be, and this time they're not. So these are all in tables as well. If I click in Perth, I can see table design at the top. On the far left, what would you know? It's called Perth. If I click on Sydney, who knows what it's called? Ah, yeah, Sydney, isn't it? Sydney. And then Auckland, Melbourne, you get the idea. Nice and simple. Keep things simple. Should always keep things simple. I want to return the right table depending on what somebody chooses from here. So I can use that table in a Vlookup or a chart or whatever the heck I want. Pivot tables, I don't know. Whatever. Now, easiest way right now, probably, is to use our friend indirect, because I have dynamic arrays and I can just say indirect, that cell, close bracket, press enter, done. And even if I choose Wellington or if I choose Auckland, who's the last one? It's Melbourne. So Melbourne's the one with a 7. And because his dynamic arrays are dynamic, it's able to grow and shrink its range. And the formula is absolutely, could barely be easier, because I'm just referencing a table name and bringing back the entire table. Whereas on previous examples like this, I was trying to reference a specific column in the table. So there's a lot more work. This is nice and simple, and it's dynamic. All the brilliant stuff that you get with Microsoft 365 and the dynamic array engine that you now have. You'll only have it if you're on the monthly channel, semi-annual, couple of months. But that's brilliant. But maybe we don't have that. We don't have the dynamic arrays yet. Is there a way I can do it without? Well, yes, Excel's always had arrays. They've always been around. So I could just do that. Now, I know that the largest one here is the one with the 7. It's Melbourne. That's the one with the most products. So if I wanted to do it before dynamic arrays, I would have to select the, let's just use this separate range, or keep that there. I have to select the range. So I know it's 2 columns wide, 7 rows deep. I know that. Click in the formula bar, equals indirect, reference that cell, just like before. But now I'm doing it old school way. So I can't just press enter. I need to do Control Shift Enter to initiate that array formula. And I've got the same result. Now that is not using the dynamic array formula engine. Even though I've got it here, I've now gone around it and said, no, I don't want to use it. I don't want to use it. Just trying to work in the old school way. So when I look at the formula, let's not do it like that. If you can see the formula in the formula bar above, I should be zooming in, here we go. If you can see that, I've got the curly braces around it, an old school array formula, which I don't need to do, but if you want to do that in older ways. Now, I still wouldn't do it like that. So you can, I wanted to show that you can, array formulas are a thing, but I know that if I try and change anything in here, it's going to start moaning at me. So, oh, you can't change part of an array. So, oh, dear me. And the fact that I had to select the area to start with, but what if the area is changing? It's not a very easy or adequate way to work a lot of the time, although it does work. So I wanted to show a way where you're just doing a single cell references, so we can play it safe no matter what version we're using. So if I'll come back on that question, Jude, I have seen it. So what I'm going to do is use the function called index. First time I'm bringing an index here, I don't know if many of you have used index before, but it is a terrific function. Possibly one of the best. Even with some of the newer stuff, but that's a competition. But what we're going to use it for here, the array is that indirect function to whatever's in that cell. Convert that cell text, Melbourne, into a reference to something called Melbourne. In this example, it's a table. You know, could be a sheet, could be a name range, something's called Melbourne. Comma. Okay, what row within that range, which is this over here, are you selecting from? Now, this is a table. They're formatted as a table, so the headers don't count. The headers are not a row. The first row is product A when you've got things in the table. So when I ask for the row number, I want the first row. But then for the next one, I want the second row. Next one, I want the third row. So I'm going to bring in another lookup function. We love these lookup functions, don't we? That's what we're here for, lookup functions. It's called row. Another lookup function. It returns the row of a reference. It's a little gem. So I'm just going to select cell A1. Oh, I'm going to try. Let's try that again. Row, open bracket, A1. Because the row number of A1 is 1. And if I copy that down, it'll be 2, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go with that. Put in a comma, go, what's the column number? I'll tell you what, if there's one called row, I bet there's one called column. Look at this. Column of A1, close bracket, column, close bracket, index. So at the moment, that's, look at Melbourne, it's over here. What's in the first row, first column? Well, it's product A, you know? So when I press enter, well, it's product A. But I can copy that down as much as I want, and then move, need to fix this reference here for B2. That's going walkies. Then I can copy it across as well. And I've got this. I can change this and it will change. Woohoo! How cool is that? Now, as you can see, when you get one a bit smaller, errors, because this doesn't have those 2 products there. So we know what's coming, I think. It's going to throw a little if error in. Easy to handle. I may not have the dynamic arrays in this example, but there's ways around it. With things like index, throw an if error in, and I'll just, you know, copy that formula to more than what I need, just to play safe. Because maybe I don't have the fancy engine to take advantage of. So we just have to think of ways around it that may not be perfect, but now I've got that, that look and feel. Doesn't matter what I choose. I've now got a drop down returning the right information from the right table, which could easily be on different worksheets, even though they're underneath here, different worksheets. Using lookup formulas, index and indirect. Oh, and row and column. 4 different lookup formulas in one. Whoa. It's got to be good. Got to be good. Excellent. Obviously, we can create charts off that and all stuff. Okay. Is it okay to answer a question now, Shlomi?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to do it at the end?
Yeah, I think Jude asked you something, I think.
Yeah. So with this example at the moment, when it comes to the dynamic ranges and these spilled arrays, if I was to reference a spilled array, the whole thing is the array at the moment, the spilled area. So just referencing that cell is going to bring back everything. So with things like a VLOOKUP, I believe I should be able to do that. Let's say I wanted, what am I going to do here? Product B. And I want to know the sales figure for product B. If I'm understanding the question correctly, I should be able to ask VLOOKUP to look for product B, comma, where you're going to look as a table array. I could select it and it will write that spilled reference in for me, or I can use that spill ref symbol, that hashtag, and you can see in the red it references that whole area because that's what the dynamic array has brought back. Now in this example, that's what I want. I should be able to do comma 2, comma 0 for the exact match, and that will work. But it is something to bear in mind that although Vlookup wants the whole table, if I'm doing something like a sum ifs like earlier and I want one column, then the fact that it's brought back the whole lot, I can't use the spilled array in that example. So sometimes, although this brought back the whole thing, that sometimes it is better to bring back them in their individual parts, so that if you run in other formulas like that, you can reference individual parts. So it didn't affect that one, but there are limitations to these dynamic arrays as well, and sometimes the second example I did might actually be better off for us sometimes. It all depends on what you're doing with it. I hope that's okay. Answer the question.
I think so.
Cool. Yeah, she said thanks.
I think the dynamic arrays are on the insider version. They're not yet for the public 365. I think
They're coming out for order 365 in 2 months.
Okay.
So at the moment, they are out for 365, but only if you're on a monthly channel. So if I went to file and account, it says I'm on the monthly channel here.
Yeah.
Whereas for some of you, it might say semi-annual, and semi-annual are getting it in like 2 months' time.
Okay.
I've written a blog post on how you can change that if anyone wants to change it to monthly. But yeah, it's so confusing. They have the insiders, and they've got like 2 different versions of 365, and they've got so many different versions of that now. You just can't. They don't make it easy.
I think the main problem is with these formulas that if you send it to someone with one of the old versions, or the desktop version, it's not going to work.
Absolutely, yeah. And these are all things we need to consider. Yeah, like who else is using this, and whether it's internal for the company, or are you going to send it to somebody else? Because who knows what version they've got. Yeah. And
until we will all have the 365. So until then, I think the old method is much better.
Absolutely, yeah. It's to play it safe, you know.
Yeah, the index and indirect, and wow, it's a huge. I didn't familiar with this kind of formula which combine those two lookup formulas.
Yeah. That's good fun. I've just got one more example. Sorry. I've got they're changing the names of stuff all the time. Don't make it easy, dude. I wish I did. So in this last example, I'm going to use a little bit of dynamic array here. Although once again, there's ways around it. We don't have to do it that way, but for simplicity. But I wanted to finish with trying to create something a bit fancy. And I wanted to create a pivot table, but it's not a pivot table. Because pivot tables are amazing, but they also have their limitations. They're very restrictive as to, how you format it or what bits you're allowed to change. And they're fantastic for what they use them for, but sometimes you want a bit more and they don't let you do it. So I want to create that kind of effect, but using formulas. So I'll have a lot more control over what I format and what I'm allowed to edit and all that kind of stuff. So I've got some periods, products, categories, and some kind of number. Over on the right, we're just taking some time so that we don't have to do it, to list all the different categories, all the different products, and all the different periods. Now these are just typed in. Products and categories are just typed. This one is a dynamic array formula called unique. So don't worry about that. We're not going to have to worry about it. But it does mean it's a spilled range. So we are going to see a little bit of that. But I've created these lists, these unique lists, so that I can use them in our formulas. And I want somebody to choose from this rows area. So I want something in row labels. If this was a pivot table, that's row labels. and something in column labels. If it's a pivot table, that's column labels. And then in here, I have the numbers. And somebody's going to choose, what do you want in row labels? Do you want product or category? Yeah, 2 different columns. So product or category. What do you want in row labels? And it's going to pick it from a drop down. So they're not dragging it into a field like you would in the pivot table. And some people are scared to death of pivot tables if they don't use them. So I'm going to say, here's the drop down list. I don't care who you are, you can use a drop down list. It's pretty normal. Don't worry about what I've done. Over here, how many periods? So do they want the last 2 periods or the last 12 periods? And I want it to dynamically be like the last X. So to start with, this bit here is really the same as this. So for ease of use for now, I'm just going to do indirect. That or that, take your pick. They both say the same thing. Let's do that one up there. And it will just bring back the products. This is just a little reference to that cell. So it's the same thing. So if somebody changes that to category, it will show the categories. If they change it to product, it will show the products. So to repeat, what I've just done there is exactly the same as this, but now it's only 1 column, and that is called product. Yeah, so that's why it worked. Just like the others were called Melbourne, etc. So that's that bit done. And I could have used index like before and done like, you know, 2nd row, 3rd row, all that jazz. But I've taken advantage of the dynamic arrays there for ease of use. Next bit, I want the periods. So from this list over here, where there's, how many is that? 24 periods, so 2 years. I want the last 12 at the moment, but let me change that to 8. Right, I've completely forgotten what I'm doing for that. That's what I'm doing. I'm using an index function. So index, excellent. Hence the name of the sheet tab, more index. Now the array is column W. Look down column W. The row number. So what I want to do here is I want to build up a range, because something that's really cool about index, and it's been able to do this well before we had dynamic arrays, is that not only can it return a reference, not only can it return a value, but it can also return a reference. And a lot of people don't know that. As I mentioned at the start of this presentation, normally when people say index, everybody thinks index match. And yeah, that's amazing, but unfortunately, everybody just says that and people group those 2 functions together, and it stops people realizing that they're 2 separate functions in their own right, and they're brilliant in their own right. They're not only used together. An index outside of that has got a lot more it's capable of. Now the row number. So I want the last 8. So this is the start of the range. So if I was selecting it, I want these last 8. So 9. Yeah, 9. I want September 2019 to April. That is the last 8. So I need to find that cell. So what I'm going to do is use a function called rows, another lookup function. So by the time this presentation is done, I think we'll have done about 9 or 10 lookup functions. Here's another one. It's called rows. Its job to tell you how many rows in a reference. So I can find out how many rows in a table or something. In this example, it's not a table, it's a spilled range. But please, you don't have to be dynamic arrays. They can work with tables and name ranges and stuff as well. But for me, it is that. So I'm going to put W1 spill, because W1 is the first cell, spilled. You can see the red. Close. How many rows are in that? Once you know that, take away the number in that cell, +1. So that will find the bottom. How many rows? 24. Take away 8 brings me to 16. No, that's 16. August. +1 brings me to September. To repeat, I'm going to give you all access to these files so you can play around and stuff. I know it's a bit crazy. What am I doing? Column number. I don't need column number because I've only got 1 column. So I'm going to close off index. A bit losing what I'm doing here for a minute. Then I'm going to put in the colon. Now that's the really good bit. Well, it's all really good because the colon is what tells it return a reference. I'm not getting you to return a value like index match does, or like we did in the previous index, that was return the value. Now I'm returning a range. And then we hit it with an index function again. I'll tell you what, I might just copy the one I've got. Let me copy that one. Oh, dear me. Get your shortcuts right. Because it's going to be the same, apart from we don't need these bits. I just want to find out how many rows, the 24 that are in it. So from, like, let's call it 8 back from 24 to 24. Remember, I've got dynamic arrays, so when I press enter, I get a spill. And you can create arrays without the spill, but you'd have to select a range first to do that, yeah? Or do the technique of index. So I'm using dynamic arrays here because the time is shooting on. I want to get there, but there are techniques I could demonstrate before outside of these. Now that goes in a column, I want it in a row, so I'm going to throw in transpose so that I can chuck that into a row. And if I choose 10, I'll get the last 10, I'll run out of space there a bit. And if I get 12, I'll get the last 12, and you get the idea. It's awesome. So to finish this off, I now need the numbers, and I need the numbers for the product in that period. And you may know from earlier that I love sum ifs. The hidden lookup formula. It's technically not a lookup formula, but it's great for lookup formulas. Sum ifs, the sum range. I want product. This is a recap on a previous example because I don't know. Yes, you can absolutely sort them. I don't know if they've chosen product or if they're choosing category. So I need to find out, and I'm going to use indirect to sum the right column, just like we did, was it 2-3 examples ago, whatever it was. So the ref text, I can't remember what that's called. I think it's called data. Let me type it in here yeah, it's called data. So that table on the left is called data. Open square bracket, close it, ampersand, refer to that cell. Ampersand, open, close square bracket, close it. So this is just a repeat from earlier. Table name, square bracket. Whatever's in that cell, is it the header, products, or category? So that's got to match. Yeah, the column header in that cell have to be the same for this technique. Close it off. Indirect coming in for that dynamic column. Criteria range. The first criteria range, doesn't really matter what order we do it in. Let's do product. Hang on, what am I doing here? I've done the wrong thing. That's what I'm doing. That's the product range. That's the criteria range. The sum range, sorry, is value. My mistake. So I'm summing the values. The first criteria range is either product or category, and then that's the criteria. Spilled range. Cool. Last example, or sorry, last arguments. Here's the last example as well. Is the period, cell above, spilled range. Obviously, I would just do it normally and drag it across, and if it wasn't a spilled range. So that should be that. And because I've used spill ranges, then it dynamically grows and all that jazz, and I don't have to drag it. So if somebody chooses category, it will show the categories, beverages, food, and the totals, which is product. And also if this changes to 10, it grows, and just taking advantage of the dynamic arrays. But we said it on the previous example, I want to say it again, you know, it'll take a bit more work without them, but you can create this without dynamic arrays as well. There are ways of doing it. You just obviously have to drag across the cells, and you might have to do if error to hide things that aren't available, just like we did previously. But I want to sidestep that just for a bit of, make this job simpler for the moment because I've demonstrated that. And now we've got what we might want to call a pivot table, or whatever you want to call this thing, but we'd have a lot more control over what we do to it now because it's just cells like anything else really. Indirect. Awesome lookup formula. Okay, team. I'm going to save that so that you've got the complete versions.
Wow, awesome.
Good.
Really awesome. Mind-blowing.
Cool. Thank you, Shlomi.
I think we on time, yeah?
Yeah, 5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. If you have questions to Alan, it's the right moment to do it. If not, so I'm going to thank Alan for his great presentation. Wow, I didn't familiar with this all kind of array formulas. I want to thank you very much to agree to come and to present your great formulas.
Thank you, Shlomi.
Yeah,
it's my pleasure.
A minute. Thank you very much. I think we have some.
I'll just quickly answer the one question.
Okay.
computergaga.
יש לו ערוץ בשם computergaga ביוטיוב. חלק מה שראיתם הוא מראה שמה בדיוק. הנה הוא רשם לכם את זה בצ'אט בוקס. אתם מוזמנים להתחבר אליו, אני הרבה שנים עוקב אחריו, אתם רואים שהוא באמת, יש לו באמת תפיסה אחרת וראייה אחרת, והוא משלב דברים שבדרך כלל אנחנו לא רואים בערוצים אחרים. וכמו שאמרתי לכם בהתחלה, ישלח לכם מייל בשעה הקרובה לסדנה שאני עושה בפאוור קוורי. מי שלא מכיר, זה בעצם כלי מאוד מאוד חזק באקסל, שנכנס כבר באקסל 2010, שיודע לעשות דברים מופלאים, רק רגע, אני אשתף את המסך. אוקיי, זה בעצם יודע לאחד טבלאות, יודע ליצור קבצים מתיקייה שלמה, לצרף טבלאות. Alan, do you use Power Query on your daily work?
Yeah.
It's a great tool.
Love it.
Yeah, I love it too, because it's a great tool and that makes things much easier.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have another questions. Just a minute. אז אני בעצם הולך לעשות סדנה של 3 שעות, במיוחד על הכלי הספציפי הזה. ואתם תקבלו... אוקיי. הנה, אלן ישים, אלן will put, this is the link to his website, זה הקישור לאתר שלו, של אלן. ומי שיצטרף ב-24 שעות הבאות לסדנה, בעצם אז מקבל מחיר מוזל של 350 שקל במקום 550. הסדנה תארך ביום שלישי הבא ל3 שעות, ואני הולך לדבר רק על הפאוור קוורי, איך מאחדים מגיליונות שלמים, טבלאות, איך אנחנו מאחדים מתיקייה שלמה, יוצרים, והכל בצורה אוטומטית ודינמית לגמרי. זאת אומרת, הפתרון יהיה חד פעמי, וברגע שהתווספו לדוגמה קבצים נוספים בתיקייה, אתם תראו את זה גם כן בקובץ שלכם המרכז. אז אני אשים לכם את זה, את כל הכישורים, all the links, I will put on underneath the YouTube channel, on the YouTube channel. אני אשים בעצם את כל הכישורים ואת הקישור לקובץ שאלן הציג לנו בתוך התיאור של הסרטון. כרגע אנחנו משודרים ביוטיוב, לייב. שבוע הבא אנחנו גם כן, אני מארח עוד גורו עולמי. תתעדכנו בדף שלי, בדף של יוניק, בפייסבוק, ואני אשמח לראות אתכם בסדנה שלי, ביום שלישי הבא. הסדנה היא בין 5 ל-8 בערב, 3 שעות, ויהיה מעולה, אז אתם מוזמנים. אם יש לכם עוד שאלות לאלן, אז זה הזמן. אם לא, אז ניפרד ממנו, ונודה לו על זה, ונודה לו על השיתוף. I want to thank you very much, Alan, for your participations on the webinar. Okay, we can see the feedbacks online.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuval. Okay, so see you next time on the webinar. Alan, take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I wish all good night and good evening and good day to all.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shlomi.
Thank you very much. Thank you.